The Liberal Democrats are profiting from the misery of the ruling Tories in Great Britain, and this is also due to their eccentric chairman who is seeking proximity to the EU. Nobody has time for humour in the British election campaign at the moment, with one exception, that of Davey, the chairman of the Liberal Democrats, and he kind of plays the clown. We knew the word with somebody else, but he likes to do this so that the small party, it has 15 MPs in the House of Commons, is even noticed alongside the two big parties, the Conservative Tories and the Social Democratic Labour Party. At the start of the election campaign, the family man from Nottinghamshire gathered his photographers at Lake Windermere in the English Lake District. To the laughter of his fellow campaigners standing on the shore, he tried out a paddleboard, only to fall into the water seconds later. Politicians take themselves too seriously during the election campaign, but they neglect the important issues, is his saying after such a stunt. With his appearance, Davey wanted to draw attention to problems with the wastewater that the British waterworks discharge into the rivers and the sea. Soaking wet, the politician then told the cameras that this scandal must be brought to an end, and the Liberal Democrats are calling for a sewer tax and harsher penalties. Davey likes to pull off such antics, falling out of a kayak or sliding down a children's slide while cheering. Davey organised a paddleboard appearance in Windermere, the only constituency held by the Liberals in the north of England. The party has little chance of winning more constituencies there. Anyone in the north of England who's angry about the Tory government votes for Labour, as is the tradition in working class towns. But in the west and south of the country, it's different. This is where the so-called blue wall actually runs. The term blue wall refers to the traditionally conservative Tory constituencies, mostly in the countryside and suburbs. But the public there is also bitter about the last 14 years of government, about the catastrophic state of the health service, and they are angry with former Prime Minister Liz Truss, for example. Homeowners are paying for her tax experiments with high mortgage interest rates. But this clientele does not want to vote for the Social Democratic Labour Party, but is switching from the Conservatives to the Liberals. One example of this is the London suburb of Richmond near Richmond Park. Families who can no longer afford London have moved there and enjoy the good schools and their gardens in the suburbs. Many of these voters took revenge on Prime Minister Boris Johnson and his Brexit in the 2019 election. They voted out the incumbent Tory MP Zac Goldsmith and voted in the Liberal candidate Sarah Olney. Johnson promptly promoted his friend, the billionaire's son Goldsmith, to the House of Lords. But that only further cemented the suburbs' opinion not to vote for the Conservatives again. The situation is similar in the neighbouring constituency of Kingston and Surbiton. Liberal Ed Davey is a Member of Parliament there, and he hopes to repeat this success in other constituencies. The chances are good because this time the British are voting tactically to oust the Tories from office. Many want to vote for the second strongest party in their constituency, regardless of their actual political views. According to one of the most recent election forecasts by the analysis company YouGov, which also extrapolated the future distribution of seats in the House of Commons, the Liberal Democrats could therefore receive 15% of the vote and thus have 48 MPs in the House of Commons. According to the latest projection by YouGov that I saw, only Nigel Farage's far-right party has caught up even more. It now has 19% of the vote, while the Conservatives only have 18%. And this makes the former Brexit party the second strongest party in the country. And that is quite a threatening development for Prime Minister Rishi Sunak and the Conservatives. Davey is also running a good election campaign. He may be ridiculed as a tomfoolery, an expression that goes back to the court jester Thomas Skelton in the 16th century. But Davey also has a serious side that drove him into politics. He grew up with a sick mother who he had to look after his father died, until he sat at her deathbed in his school uniform. Today, it is his son who needs care because of a disability, which Davey and his wife provide. And she, in turn, is less and less able to step in since she was diagnosed with multiple sclerosis. My biggest fear is that I don't know who will look after my son when we are no longer here, is what Davey said on camera. It was met with sympathy by all those in the country who themselves care for relatives. The Liberals' election manifesto is therefore strongly focused on social issues. It promises free care and help at home, more doctors and faster treatment for cancer patients, more investment in public services, an end to the restriction of social assistance to 2 children. In return, bank profits and capital gains are to be taxed more heavily. They are also calling for an end to the Rwanda policy planned by the Tories, the postponement of the net zero emission target to 2045, the lowering of the voting age to 16, and the reform of the electoral law away from majority voting to proportional representation. Another demand is rapprochement with the EU. The Liberal Democrats already ran a campaign against Brexit in 2016. Since the Brexit issue is still a sensitive one in Great Britain, Davey is only calling for a return to the EU internal market for the time being, although someone should explain to him how difficult that would be. Great Britain would then have a similar status to Norway, Iceland, or possibly Switzerland, and would therefore have to comply with the 4 basic principles of the internal market, including the free movement of people and adaptation to EU rules on trade. But once again said, it's not that easy to do that. But Britain would be outside the EU customs union, meaning it could make its own trade deals. This would require a radical change of course from Labour, which currently insists that it does not want to return to the EU single market or the customs union. Returning to the European single market fits with the Liberals' policies. The party traces its roots back to the Liberal Party, one of the first 2 major parties in the United Kingdom. The party advocated free trade, but introduced social reforms before and during World War I, and after the war, the party fell apart. The increasingly weakened rump of the party merged with the new Social Democratic Party in 1988 to form the current Liberal Democrats. And there are 2 currents within this party: the centre-left Beveridge group and a centre-right group that calls itself Orange Bookers. And Davey is one of them. The name refers to the Orange Book that several authors, including Davey, published in 2004. It's a plea for a free market, almost a neoliberal approach. He prepared the ground for the coalition that the so-called Lib Dems entered into with the Tories in 2010, and Davey was also in the cabinet at that time. The coalition lasted until the election in 2015, when the Liberals were severely punished by voters for joining forces with the Conservative Tories. And the reason was, the years after 2010 are seen as the time of austerity, the major saving measures in Great Britain after the financial crisis. At that time, David Cameron and his Chancellor of the Exchequer, George Osborne, ordered financial cuts that hit the poorer population in particular and left public institutions weakened. Davey says today that the Liberals, as part of the government at the time, prevented things from getting even worse. But the electorate has not forgiven the party for that for a long time. Davey is therefore reluctant to talk about a coalition after Election Day on July 4th. It could be that the Labour Party does not win an absolute majority. He does not want to get involved in a discussion about that. But at the moment it looks like an overall win anyway. But Davey knows one thing: the Liberal Democrats will be significantly strengthened in the House of Commons in a few weeks, no matter what other foolish antics Davey gets up to nowadays. I talked a lot about the Labour Party and the Conservatives in recent months, and previously also more about Reform UK, and so it was about time that I talk about the Liberal Democrats as well. There are many parties running, and I talked about the SNP a lot in the past, but not too much about the Liberal Democrats, and that's why I thought it's about time to complete the picture a bit more. But if you want to know more, the next video is right here in the end screen. I'll see you there. I'll be back.